Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I really recommend that you check them out. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids loved the videos and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. I'm telling you, it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, totally online, just 20 months. And while you're earning your master's, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We'd like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, results. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it. Mention the podcast, homecampus.com. And we want to thank our friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, and if they don't see content that you created to celebrate their accomplishments and showcase your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. The website is Gipper.com. Check them out today. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group so you can hear their voice and maybe address their concerns, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And having that data in your hands is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going all the way to Missouri today, and we're going to be visiting with Jeni Hopkins. She's going to share her journey, but wow, very impressive. She's a long-time, very successful basketball coach in the state of Missouri. She's a published author. She's a speaker. She hosts her own podcast. We're going to talk about that. and a bunch of other things. So very excited to have her on. Jeni Hopkins, welcome to the Educational AD podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's go and jump right in. For our listeners, we're recording this on October 29th, so it'll be pretty timely by the time you listen to it. Um, Jeni, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college years, and then we'll take a break and hear more about your career later. But what's your life story in 2 minutes? Okay?
My life story. Whoa. Well, I was born in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but I've grown up in Springfield, Missouri, and I played just about every sport you can think of. My dad played in the NFL, and so did my uncles. They all played at the University of Arkansas, and they were on a national championship team. And then my dad and one of my uncles played in the NFL, and so raised by athletes. My mom was also very into athletics as well. And so I had an older brother and a younger brother. So we had some very competitive kickball games and as you can imagine, and a lot of pickup games in the yard. And so sports were always a big part of our lives. And I played college basketball. After college basketball, I came back to Missouri State University and I played on the #1 collegiate program in the country of handball. So I played collegiate handball. My father was the coach, so that was a big reason why. And so I played four-wall handball and fell in love with that sport. And then while I was playing that, I started coaching. And so I ended up getting a college degree in broadcasting. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, but then I fell in love and married a farmer, and farmers don't move. Broadcasters tend to move. So I went back and got an education degree and got into coaching, and I coached for 24 years. And I got a master's in counseling during that time, and I started doing sports counseling while I was coaching as well. And so as when I retired from coaching, I went into broadcasting, and I've been doing broadcasting since. I've been doing play-by-play, color analyst work, and then I have my own sports talk radio show called A Coach's Perspective, because I didn't want to do it from a broadcaster's point of view. I had been coaching long enough that I wanted to do a show that was from a coach's point of view, and I thought that was an important angle, and I wanted to give a voice to that point of view. So I've also been a part of the Missouri Basketball Coaches Association on their executive board for over 23 years. And that is a organization that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm very involved with that. I'm on some local boards and organizations, and like to be involved in my community. And but my favorite role is being a mom. I mean, I'm married, and I have two children, and they were also very involved in sports, and so love what that's done for their lives as well.
We're going to jump into all of that in our later segments. I want to go all the way back to growing up. You mentioned, kickball and backyards. I'm guessing that your yard when you were a kid was kind of like our yard. We had the biggest yard in the neighborhood, and that's where everybody came for those backyard football games or street basketball. Was that the case for you?
Yes, absolutely. We had a basketball court. We had a swimming pool. We had a little baseball diamond. I mean, we had the best backyard. Area, like a little recreation area, and all of the neighbor kids. I mean, it was always filled with bikes from all the neighbor kids that came in and threw their bikes down. My mom was always cooking meals, and there were always coolers out, with water and Gatorade. And I mean, we just always had a great time. And it was always a lot of fun playing pickup games, and the neighbor kids always coming over, and a lot of fun growing up.
Now, you mentioned you're a collegiate basketball player. I'm curious, again, I am a lot older than you. Um, when you were in high school, did you do other sports? And if you did, was there a tug of war between your coaches? So, Jeni, you shouldn't play, volleyball. You should just play basketball year round. Was that a thing when you were in high school?
No, it was not. I am a huge believer in multi-sport athletics. Huge. My father was huge multi-sport believer, and so was my mother. I mean, you just did that. Whatever season it was, you were finding a sport to play. I played golf basketball and track and field. And my father, he played football and he ran track and field in college. And he always told all three of us that if we wanted to be athletes, that was fine. If we didn't want to be athletes, that was fine. But if we did choose to play a sport, that track and field was not an option, that was the foundation of all athletics. And so I knew track wasn't going to be an option because we wanted to be athletes. And I played golf. Believe it or not, I used to have a little bit of a temper when I played sports, and I played golf for anger management, and it was good therapy. It helped calm me. And then I don't know if you're a golfer or not, but sometimes if your listeners are a golfer, it can bring a little inner rage out of you sometimes. And so I learned how to control my temper by playing the sport of golf, and it learned how to kind of control that temper, and it helped my game in basketball.
Oh, I love to hear that. I love to golf. I hardly ever go out, but I love to go out, and I'm really not that good at it. And a few years ago, well, probably maybe 15 years ago, I was playing in, the scramble, the golf scramble that schools do to raise money. And I'm just, very frustrated. And one of my partners very gently goes, Jake, you're not good enough to get mad. Okay. So, and he's right. Yeah, he's right. So, I started to enjoy it maybe a little bit more. Uh, Moving on to college. Okay. I ask this question quite a bit. Now you became a coach, and we're going to hear about your coaching career because it is incredibly impressive. But back when you were a collegiate athlete, now you had grown up in an athletic family, et cetera, but did you know at that time that you wanted to be a coach, that you were going to work in athletics, or was there a special moment that just was kind of the catalyst for, hey, I think I want to be a coach? Do you remember anything like that?
I do remember when I decided I wanted to get into coaching, and it was, I had coached a little bit when I was in high school. I'd coached some middle school teams just to be in the gym. I was a gym rat, and I liked being in the gym. I liked working camps. And so when I got into college, I went back to my old high school and was working out in the summer times. And the coach there at the time had me working some camps. And when I decided to move back, my old high school was on the campus of Missouri State University. It's a laboratory school on the campus. And I was moving back to Missouri State to play handball and go to school there. And he said, hey, I need an assistant coach. What do you think? And I thought, well, I need a part-time job, so why not? And I was the assistant for 2 years. And then I got my degree and was hired as a head coach. And I was only 21 when I graduated college. And so I was a head coach at 21. And it was quite a moment, because I thought, what am I doing coaching? I mean, I have I have a broadcasting degree, a media degree. And so I ended up getting, a provisional and going back and getting my education degree. But I got the bug those 2 years when I was an assistant coach, my junior and senior year. I got the bug for sure. So it was pretty immediate that I wanted to be into coaching, and thought this is definitely a gig I want to do.
All right, boy. I've got my next question already lined up, but we're going to go ahead and take our first break. Our guest today is Jeni Hopkins, longtime basketball coach, author, speaker, podcast host herself, and a bunch of other stuff that we're going to hear about. Let's go and take that first break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Jeni Hopkins, a longtime coach in the state of Missouri, and she's going to continue to share her story. Jeni, you just mentioned that you got hired as a head coach right out of the chute. One of my favorite questions is, it comes off of a statement talking about new coaches or new ADs. We frequently hear, "You don't know what you don't know." What was something that you found out after playing basketball for your whole life that you didn't know about being a head coach?
Now, how long is your show? Oh, I mean, it's a long list. It really is. You know, when you're young and you're coaching, you feel like you're building a plane as you're flying it. I mean, honestly. And you get this part and you get that part, and then you realize that part doesn't go there. And so you got to figure out where that part goes. And so the key is I really had some key mentors. The head coach that I worked with, Steve Hench, was he was tremendous, and he was still in the building. So I was his assistant for 2 years, and then I got the head coaching job, and he was still in the building. And so he was a great person to bounce ideas off. I also had a tremendous mentor in the boys coach that I was working with. But I would suggest to a lot of the listeners that are young coaches to really lean on your athletic directors. And no, you did not tell me to say that. But athletic directors are tremendous resources for young coaches because oftentimes they're retired coaches themselves, and they've been through it, and they have the experience, they have the resources, or they know where to find them. And so I had a lot of help with my father, who obviously had a lot of connections, and my mother was a great resource for me as well. She's always been a grounding resource for me. I had to know her opinion on so many things. She was always spot on with her advice. And I used my resources. When you're a young coach, you cannot have a big ego. You've got to put that aside. You can have confidence coming out your ears, but you cannot have a big ego. There's a difference. You got to put that aside and use your resources and find the mentor that is a good fit for you, that you can be vulnerable with, and get some guidance, because there is a lot you don't know when you're coaching.
That's such an important point, and I share it all the time, and it's something that I failed to do enough as a young coach. And you're absolutely right. I didn't want, those veteran coaches, those smart coaches, to think, I was a stupid kid, even though I was. Okay, and you just got to say. And here's the thing, again, for listeners: veteran coaches and ADs especially, they love to share. A coach isn't going to give you every secret because he doesn't want you, or she doesn't want you to come back and beat them
Right.
with those secrets, but they're still going to share. An AD, they're going to share everything. They can't wait to help out a youngster. So, just like Jen says, reach out, make those connections, make that call, shoot that email, go visit them. Hey, coach, you got a minute? They want to help you.
And you know what? They're going to respect you more in the long run for asking. They're going to respect you more. They don't think less of you, like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. No, they're going to respect you more for being a sponge and wanting to learn.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's important for our listeners, as you mentioned, some of them are young or new to coaching, or new to being an AD. I think it's important for them to hear about the journeys that we take. So take us on your journey. Okay. What were some of those stops in your 20 plus years of, I'll say, championship coaching?
Coaching was a journey. I was at my alma mater for 8 years, and it was a great experience. Being there. As a coach, my first year as a head coach, I was in an open gym that one summer, and I was talking to some of the players that were sophomores at the time, and I asked them what some of their goals were. We were talking about just general goals, and it was just more conversation. We weren't writing anything down. But at our school, we had these banners on the wall, and they didn't care if you won districts or conference or anything like that. They wanted to know how you did at state. You didn't get a banner on the wall unless you won state at this school. So I was looking around the gym, and I said, "What are some of your goals?" And one of them pointed to this banner. And there was only one thing for girls basketball, and it was 1979 girls runner up at state. And that was the only thing girls basketball had. And she pointed at it and said, I want to add to that banner. And so I said, well, let's get to work. So their senior year, so 2 years later, they played for a state championship. And they got to add to that banner. Plus, they got the state overall sportsmanship award. So they got to put two things on that banner. And so, little things like that were just that was pretty incredible. Of course, we lost in overtime. That still stings, but they got to be there. That was pretty incredible. It was a great experience. I ended up going to another high school. So this was a smaller high school. I went to one of the largest high schools in the area, and coached there for 16 years. And had a great experience. Very two different schools, very different. But I loved both of my experiences. They were both great journeys. I learned a lot. When I was at the larger high school, I had to do some different things. I had to cut players. I didn't have to cut players at the small school. That's one of the biggest things I had to do. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did, was looking at someone in the eye and telling them that they couldn't play a game that I loved so much. I had more managers than any other team in our conference, because I was trying to keep kids involved. And so, I mean, there were a lot of things that were very different about those experiences. But for 24 years, I was able to be at just two schools, have these great programs, both of them going and being able to be successful, win some championships, go to, the state finals and be able to be there, and be able to watch those programs flourish. The large high school had never even played for a district championship, let alone a state championship. So to be able to see the growth and to be able to see, the development of that program was a lot of fun to be on that ride.
You know, you mentioned were at your alma mater, you had success. I mean, great success, moved on to a larger school. Um, when coaches choose to move, there are always circumstances. Sometimes it's the coach, hey, looking for another challenge. Sometimes it's family, et cetera. And it's not a right, wrong, good or bad. It's just what motivated it. Some coaches, they're just they're climbers. They see it as the next challenge, small school, big school, college, et cetera. When you were considering changing schools, can you share, what were some of the motivations or reasons behind it?
I absolutely loved being at my alma mater. I was very comfortable there. I had the players for 6 years. I coached the junior high all the way through the varsity. So, I mean, I had them for 6 years and it was beautiful. I loved it. It was a well-oiled program by that point, and it was great. And someone had said something to me like, you're very comfortable in that position. And it was a compliment, but it bothered me. And as a competitor, you never want to be comfortable, right? You
Right.
always, um, and I don't know why the timing came about, but it wasn't long after that, that the athletic director of the larger school district called and said, I have an opportunity that I would like for you to take a look at. And so I entertained that opportunity and went over and looked at it, and it was a good fit and it was a good challenge at the time. And I needed to spread my wings a little bit. And so obviously he gave me no guarantees and wanted me to come over and explore it. But it was a good fit, and I was very glad to be able to do that. Now, after 16 years, I ended up coming back to my alma mater, and I'm now a school administrator at my alma mater. I've been back there for 9 years. And so I've made full circle. So it's been a great experience. When I decided to get out of coaching, we'd won back-to-back district championships, and the program was in great shape. And it was one of those times where I wanted to start using my broadcasting degree, and I'd had some of those opportunities. I got to go out on my own terms on a high note. A lot of coaches don't get that opportunity, and I just I wanted to take that. I wanted to ride the wave and to make that pivot.
Well, you covered so many great points there. And this one that I'm going to talk about, you mentioned twice. You said in making the change, it was a good fit. And
Mhm.
there's so many things that go into that fit. And so, young listeners, if as you consider the many job opportunities you're going to have in your career, do your research,
Yes.
make sure it's a good fit. Community, administration, faculty, the kids, your significant other, and oh, by the way, yeah, the money. So yeah, make sure it's a good fit. We're going to take another break. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, Jeni Hopkins wears a lot of hats. We're going to take a dive into one of those hats she wears when we come back. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, go to hometownticketing.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Hometown Ticketing will help you make the best online ticketing solution for your school. We'd also like to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents love it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com.
Hey, Jake, we use Huddle. I love Huddle. I'm glad that they're a sponsor of your show because they have great products. It's almost endless what the capabilities of their programs will do.
Well, it always makes me feel good when a coach who's not a football coach says great things about the Huddle platform. I knew how good it was for my sport, but I was a little bit nervous when we became a Huddle school. But you're absolutely right. Our volleyball, our basketball coaches, our soccer coaches, everybody just loved it. And you're so right. The kids love the videos. Our parents were just huge fans of the streaming, and there's a lot more. So thanks for sharing that.
Do you remember the days where you had to drive to a convenience store and actually exchange VHS tapes?
Nope, absolutely. I was
You
just
don't have to
talking
do that
about that.
anymore. Not with Huddle. It's just a click.
I was just talking about that with a good friend of mine. Yeah, boy, those that's a podcast episode in itself.
Right.
Once again, for our guest, Jeni Hopkins, or for our listeners, Jeni Hopkins is our guest, and I've mentioned a couple times that she's the host of her own podcast called A Coach's Perspective. Now, you just heard about her incredible coaching career. Jeni, how did the podcast come about, and how can our listeners find it so they can start following?
Well, it came about when I finished coaching, I decided to go into broadcasting. I started doing some color analyst work, some play-by-play, and we have a local ESPN affiliate that had some sports talk radio shows on it. And I started co-hosting and filling in for people when they were gone. And I started thinking, I mean, I thought I want to do this. I want to try to have a show, but I want to do it from a coach's point of view. I mean, the broadcasters had their angle, and that was wonderful, but I had just a different mindset, if you will. It was more of a coach's mindset. And so I thought, well, I have a degree in this area, so let's put it to use. And so I went to the station owner and made a pitch, and he said, well, you got it. You can have 1 hour a week, and here's your show. And so I started it, and my first guest was Jimmy Johnson. My dad was teammates with him at the University of Arkansas. And so I called him and said, listen, I'm starting this new show, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd be my first guest. And thank goodness he said yes. so, So I was off and running, and I wanted to cover all sports, all levels. I wanted to make sure and do different series. I've had some sports psychology series. I've had youth sports, parenting, sport parenting series. I even did a series on the weirdest mascots in America. I have had different panels. Besides doing some different profiles on athletes, I've had some wonderful guests. I've had, Joe Namath has been on. I've had Patrick Ewing, Kurt Warner, some wonderful interviews and profiles. Katie Smith has been on. I've had Sherry Cole most recently on, and Emmett Smith was just on. So I've had some great guests and some wonderful, wonderful profiles. But that's how it started. And when I started it, I didn't want to just have a 1 hour a week show. I wanted it to roll into a podcast. So after it airs live, a couple hours later, it rolls into a podcast on Spotify and Apple. And then it's also archived on my website, acoachesperspective.com. So that's a coach and then S. It's because you can't put an apostrophe in the URL, but it's acoachesperspective.com. So all of my shows are archived on my website as well. So from that, I started branching out to different areas and started a mentoring and leadership program, and just started using that show as kind of a platform for a lot of different things. But I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I am coming up on my anniversary is of 8 years doing that show.
Oh, wow. That's great. So many, I guess I'll say people like me, athletic directors or coaches that are now, have a podcast. We got into it because of and out of COVID, but you were doing this, well before that. Now your background was in broadcasting, and it was a radio show that again became a podcast. Um, what do you how do you see how the public, I guess, digests information in the podcast world? Is it just another form of communication? Is it the preferred method? Is it depend on age and demographics? I mean, you're a pro at this. I'm just a retired AD. Give me some wisdom here.
Well, first of all, Jake, you do a fantastic job. I've listened to a lot of your episodes and you do a great job.
Well, thank you.
So I really appreciate what you do. And I think just, it's almost, and you'll know what I mean by this. It's just almost unfair how fun it is to be able to sit down, and just talk sports with someone. I mean, I've had athletic director panels, I've had officials on, I've had Q&A, and I've had lots of, I've had trivia shows. It's almost unfair how fun it is. It's and so, when and I like having, I have guests are in the studio, they're at the station live. And then when it rolls to the podcast and I go back and listen to it on the podcast, I sit there and think how this is it's so much fun to be able to listen to people's stories. And just like you said at the very beginning of this podcast, I like to listen to the journey of people. I like to listen to their story, and I like to because we can learn so much from what they've been through. And I like to be able to share people's story. You never know who's going to relate to what someone has gone through before, and how that's going to help them in their path. And so I love to be able to tell people's story. I get captivated by their journeys, and this is just a great platform for it. And I hope that it's been enjoyable for people that listen to it.
Oh, wow. You took the words literally right out of my mouth. People have asked me, Jake, why do you do this podcast? And I go, think about two or three athletic directors or coaches that you would go play golf with, or maybe have a couple beverages with. You guys are going to talk. You're going to share stories. Hey, I got this kid, or I've got this coach, or I've got this, oh goodness, a parent. You're going to share stories. That's what I'm doing. And I get to hear their stories, and it is so much fun. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If for my little podcast here, we've had, this is my sponsor pitch. We have Hall of Famers, we have rank and file ADs, lunch pail ADs and coaches, and everything in between. Half of our 600 guests have been women leaders. Okay, now you just rattled off a list of some A-list guests. Okay, I got to get your booking person to schedule for me. All right, here's where I put you on the spot. What's something that was shared, and you don't even have to say, you know, well, this was Jimmy Johnson or this was Joe Namath, but
Sure.
what was something that was shared that, you know, it's, you know, G-rated stuff, but it was just, wow, I can't believe this person is sharing this publicly. Anything unique or interesting in all of your, and you have listeners, you need to check out Jeni's podcast. It's a very impressive library. But can you share, you know, something, you know, on the record, off the record with us?
Well, and I will tell you this with all the utmost respect for the amazing like national guests that I have had, the utmost respect for them. I have had so many of our local guests and Hall of Famers and our local athletic directors and coaches that have came on and told some of the most fascinating stories, and I've learned just as much from them as I have from all of my guests. Does that make sense? And
Oh.
so but I'll tell you that some of the stories that I have heard that have made my chin drop have been oftentimes from different segments that I've had. I have this, I have a youth sports series that I do, and sometimes I'll profile different parents. I'm sure that athletic directors will. This is like saying Mufasa when you should, but dealing with parents in the stands. I have a segment that deals with stories about parents in the stands, and I've had an author that came on and he wrote a book that's titled "You Might Need a Jacket," and it's titled "You Might Need a Jacket," meaning you might need a straight jacket because you're crazy in the stands. And he profiles different parents in the stands and he tells all these different stories. And so I brought in 7 and 8-year-old kids and had them read those stories on air, telling them in their voice. And that was one of the more impactful shows that I think I've had in a long time, because they were telling these things that adults were doing in the stands in a child's voice, and it was that was kind of cool. I had some great stories from Joe Namath. Told some great locker room stories, the PG kind. He told some great locker room stories, and that was a lot of fun. My dad was able to be, he was a teammate of Joe Namath, and so they were able to share some stories, and that was kind of fun to be able to listen to some of those. Patrick Ewing had I found Patrick Ewing, the person that I was communicating with to get that interview. I had told them that when I was playing, that I had on my locker, I had pictures of Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas. And I used to say, I want to handle the ball like Isaiah Thomas. I want to shoot like Larry Bird. I want to play defense like, Michael Jordan. I thought he was a great defender. And I want to rebound like Patrick Ewing. And I used to talk about this mantra. Well, the person that was booking the interview told this story to Patrick Ewing. And so when I started the interview, he opened up with, I told that person, don't tell Patrick that I said that because I don't want him to think I'm some fangirl. Well, we opened up the interview and he said, well, before we get started, I want to tell you two things. I'm happy to be here and happy to do this interview. But the second thing is I did a hell of a lot more than just rebound. so, so there's a lot of good stories. And of course I was like, yes, I know you did, but you were really good at rebounding. But there's a lot of really good stories. And I just love listening to those and giving them a platform to tell them, just like you said, giving that platform for athletic directors and coaches to share their stories and reminisce and be able to use those as either lessons or just for entertainment as well.
Oh, well, I love it. I can't imagine, but I'm trying to imagine that conversation with Patrick Ewing.
Yes.
That must have been
Yes.
cool. We're going to do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wants to, find the show, A Coach's Perspective, or your website and connect with you and listeners, you got a tremendous resource here. How do they do that? Can you give us that contact information?
You can go to acoachesperspective.com. And again, it's a coach and then a coachesperspective.com. and you can find me there. It has all my contact information. There's previous shows that are archived there. And you can look up previous guests even and find their show as well. And you can reach out to me on that contact.
Right. I think I'm going to look up that Patrick Ewing episode.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
We're going to take another quick break. I know for our regular listeners, that's shocking, but we're coming back with more. Jeni Hopkins does a lot more than just host a great podcast. She's going to share some of those things. So stick around. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. It's a very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, communication, rosters, results. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. And we want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. One more time, Gipper.com. Welcome back once again to the Educational AD Podcast. Jeni, I mentioned briefly at the top of the show, you're involved in a number of different initiatives, activities in the state of Missouri and nationally. Can you share just a few of the activities that you're involved that help benefit athletes, coaches, players, and ADs?
You know, I think one of the things I'm very proud of is my association with the Missouri Basketball Coaches Association. I've been on their executive board for 23 years, and that's we promote the game of basketball in the state of Missouri. And I've been involved with the National High School Basketball Coaches Association. I've also been involved in a program that is called Court Talk, and that's a promotion of women's basketball in Southwest Missouri. But from my sports talk radio show, A Coach's Perspective, I was leaving one night, and I had finished a series on mentorship, and how important mentorship is and how important it is in the development of leaders. And I was walking out of the station, and it hit me that I had talked about it for weeks, but I wasn't doing anything about it. And so I started a mentoring and leadership program called CHAMPS, and that stands for Champion Humans and Mentoring Partnerships for Success. Took me a while to come up with that one. And so I started it for seniors in high school, and I pair them up with successful members in our community. And we meet once a month, and we have a championship word, and we have guest speakers, and we have guided communications. And in between meetings, the mentor and mentee have at least one communication. And throughout their senior year, they kind of have this guidance from someone that has been through a lot in their careers and been successful. That's not a family member. That's not someone that sees them every day in the hallways. And so it's been a program that I have absolutely loved being a part of. And it is we are in year 7 right now for that program, and it's been very successful. So Champs has been a big one of my favorite side gigs, if you will. And then recently I have been in the last 7 years, I've been traveling around and doing mental coaching presentations. I've been a sports counselor for almost 20 years. And so I've been speaking to teams. I've done individual counseling for a long time. So I've been doing team presentations, and I do coaching presentations. And I'm even doing parent presentations now. So athletic departments are having me come in and do presentations to parents about being sport parents and how to release their athletes to the game and to the coaches. And that's been a great experience as well. But mental coaching, I'm finishing my doctorate in performance psychology, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart. And so that's something that's really, really important in this day and age.
Well, you gave out the information for the website. That's another great resource, for coaches and ADs. If you're interested in bringing in, a speaker for professional development, for your coaches, or as Jenny just mentioned, sometimes, we as ADs, we can talk to parents, as long as we want to,
Yeah.
but then we bring in, a guest speaker that's oftentimes saying similar things to what we said, and the parents go, "Oh, wow, that's incredible. Thanks so much for bringing that speaker in." But no, there's another reason to bring Jenny in. Jenny, I get to do that a lot myself, talk with coaches and with
Yes.
parent groups, and I love the parent groups. Um, any interesting comments or conversations maybe after the presentation, where, that parent will come up to you and say, "Hey, you mentioned, something during your presentation. Anything you can share?"
Right. Well, a lot of times, so my focus right now with the mental coaching is perfectionism, which is running pretty rampant right now. I work with collegiate athletes primarily, and perfectionism. A lot of athletes right now are not giving themselves a lot of grace. I mean, they look at mistakes as a reflection on them as a human being instead of just a mistake in an area of growth. So I'm really working on building a toolbox of coping strategies for athletes to use, whether big or small, to help them through some of those performance anxiety and some of those, the fear of failure, some of those effects of perfectionism. As far as the parent conversations, probably some of the things that I hear often is how hard it is to, as I said earlier, maybe release them to the game, release them, because we have parents that want to fix everything. I don't want to say they want to control everything, but we have a generation of parents right now that do, they want to fix it. They want, if something's not going well and their child's not happy, they want to fix it, which is a natural reaction, instead of letting them struggle a little bit and helping guide them through it and support them through it and making them stronger for it. They want to jump in there and fix it. So that's often my biggest question is, how do I fix this when they're not happy? And that's probably what I hear the most.
Let me again put you on the spot. This is great stuff. What's one of your, and I'm not trying to get you to give away your entire presentation, but what's one of your for lack of a better word, go-to phrases when trying to get parents to understand that? I mean, it's so simple. Hey, you got to let them go. You got to release them to the coach. It's their experience, it's their life, it's their journey, it's their season. Do you have, a favorite saying, if you will, that you share with parents to try to get that to really resonate and bring it home?
Back off. No, I'm kidding. That's not what I say. No, I'm just kidding. I don't say that. No, I'm kidding. What I try to do is say kind of a lot what you just said is, this is their experience. This is their journey. And anytime that you step in and try and handle it for them, you're crippling them from developing their coping skills to help them in the future. And that's really what sports are about, is trying to help them develop the skills to be successful adults and to be successful in the future. And we're using sports as a platform. And so let it work. If you're doing it for them, that's not going to help them. I mean, and so you can't go shoot the free throw for them. You can't go catch a pass for them. You can't kick the field goal for them. So why would you not let them deal with a mistake? I mean, let them deal. This is just part of the skill development. So let them and release them. I try to use that word a lot and try to release them. And I give parents strategies just like I do athletes, walk away, take some deep breaths. You have to be able I know that it's hard. I got to validate. It's hard sitting in the stands as a parent sometimes and seeing your kid either, making a mistake or messing up or not getting on the field or not playing and wanting them to play. I mean, that is hard. It is tough. Um, but it's their journey. And they have to be able to, to be able to handle that. And so, is there a time and a place for parents to intervene? Absolutely. But you have to be able to let them try and navigate it for themselves. And that's, you're doing them a disservice if you go in and try to quote unquote fix it for them. And in the long run, you got to be able to see that. I also tell a lot of stories. I give examples and scenarios that
Right.
hopefully they can relate to.
Wow, that is so cool. I want to come to one of your presentations. And I'll be the guy in the back videotaping it. Okay. Well, this has been so cool. Thanks so much for sharing with our listeners today, but we're not done yet. We always wrap things up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director, maybe even a brand new coach, on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. So let's take that break. And when we come back, we're going to see what Jeni Hopkins puts in her new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for their support of the podcast. You know, in my school, we use surveys for everything. We used them for coaches, for kids, for teachers, and we used them for parents. And the information that came back was almost always over the top positive. But we also got to hear from those squeaky wheel parents. And a lot of times it was a small issue, but because we knew about it, we could address it before it became a big issue. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. And having all of that positive information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to allow you to really take your program to the next level. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Jeni Hopkins, a long time, very successful high school basketball coach in the state of Missouri, active in the Coaches Association, presenter at the national level, and also the host of her very own podcast, A Coach's Perspective. Certainly knows her way around the world of athletics. But right now, I'm going to task her with sending out a brand new athletic director, a brand new leader, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in the toolbox. So, Jeni, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
I think I'm going to give pieces of advice. So you can tattoo these on your wrist to remind you. So these are pieces of advice. I think the first one we talked about in the very first segment, and that is find a trusted mentor. Find a trusted mentor that you can be vulnerable with. It's very important to be able to bounce things off of. Have a sounding board that you trust. So find a mentor. The second thing is less is more. Less is more. That is when you are in meetings with parents, when you're in meetings with coaches, when you are in meetings with staff members, remember that you are going to want to explain away all kinds of different things. Remember that less is more. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk. And that is something I want you to remember. The third thing I think is time management. Find your balance. It's okay to leave things in your inbox and to walk away. It's okay. And to give yourself permission to do that. Athletic directors, you're always going to have something to do. You're always going to have something on your plate. It is okay to be able to leave those boxes unchecked until the next day, because you give yourself permission to be able to have your life away from your duties. That time management and that balance is really important. And then you can go to a coach's perspective.com and you can check out resources there as well, and listen to my show.
Well, you probably saw me scribbling all those down furiously. I love, you talked about the time management from an organizational standpoint, but also from a life standpoint,
Yes.
finding
Yes.
finding that balance. I heard somebody say, a work life, it's never a balance, it's a compromise. Well, make sure you're compromising at the right levels. And you and I talked about the mentoring and the less is more, and you tied it into, shut up. You said, back off, but one of my favorite expressions is shut up and listen.
Right.
And I would share with my coaches, it's something that I didn't do enough of. So I'm telling you, shut up and listen. Less is more.
That's right.
That is great.
Yeah.
Um, Jeni, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to connect with you, find out more, or start following the podcast, what's the best way for them to do that?
So my website is acoachesperspective.com. I mean, we're also on Facebook and X, but you also can find it on Spotify and Apple podcasts as well. So you can find us there. But acoachesperspective.com is your one-stop shop.
Well, Jeni Hopkins, thanks so much again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with our listeners. All the best moving forward. And hopefully we're going to be able to connect in person somewhere down the road.
Thank you, Jake. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to have to get you back. For listeners, we enjoy that you are listening. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back and join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again.